Hi everyone, my name's Claire. I'm the head of platform and community here at Virtual, and I'm delighted today to be welcomed by Scott Hunt from Valhalla Brewing. It's going to be a really exciting session today where we're going to learn all from Scott about Valhalla Brewing, their journey to date, why they're looking to raise funds, and most importantly, what they're going to be using the funds for. And then once the session is finished, we can switch over to yourselves to ask Scott questions and learn more about this really exciting and upcoming opportunity. So Scott, welcome to the webinar. Welcome to the session. I'll hand over to you and you can run us through who you are, who the company is, and what you're all about.
Right, thanks Claire, and thank you everyone for joining. So my name's Scott Hunt. I'm the founding director of Valhalla Brewing and Lotus Beer Co Proprietary Limited, which is the parent company of Valhalla Brewing and Taproom. So I'm just going to run through a presentation which will give you a bit of a background of our company and of our brand first, and then we'll open up to questions. So I'm assuming everyone can see the screen now as I can see it.
Yep.
Great, Claire, that was a yes. Cool. So a little motto, I suppose, a little in-house motto, unofficial motto that we have for Valhalla is be bold, be brave, and bend the rules. So I guess what that means is that we want to be pushing boundaries. We want to push boundaries with our brand. We want to push boundaries with our beers. And we don't want to be afraid to try new things. We want to be, I guess, at the cutting edge and always not afraid to be out there trying new and interesting things. So just about Valhalla. Valhalla is the Great Hall of Odin where Viking warriors go after they die in battle. They're then reunited with their friends and family, and in essence, it's the Vikings' heaven, where they feast, fight, and drink for eternity. So we thought that was a fantastic name for a brewery, although today we think of ourselves as lovers rather than fighters. But yeah, ideally, I mean, essentially we called the business of the brewery Valhalla, the brewing business Valhalla, because we felt what better thought than being able to sort of hang out with your mates, drinking beer, telling stories and having a good time for the rest of eternity. So that's where the name came from. Valhalla was established in 2016. The first couple of years were really as a hobby business, and in the last 4 years we've really ramped things up. Valhalla is under the Lotus Beer Co Proprietary Limited umbrella, which includes wholesale sales under our subsidiary business, Lotus Beer Collective. It includes production through Valhalla Brewing, and it includes retail through our tap room, and also our online site Beer Moth, which really is a very new work in progress. In 2021, Valhalla Brewing won the Australian International Beer Award Champion Gypsy Brewer, which was a really fantastic achievement for us as a very small business to be there in the room with all the big, the heavy hitters of our industry, and not just the craft beer industry, the entire brewing industry, and to be named the best gypsy brewer in Australia was fantastic. Last year we ticked over our $1 million turnover for the first time, and this year we expect to produce around 70,000 litres of beer. A lot of this I'll touch on in a bit more detail in a sec. With our new brewing capabilities, which again I'll talk about in a moment, we will have capacity to brew up to 500,000 litres a year from next year. Our tap room in Union Street in Geelong, which we opened almost 4 years ago now, is a really essential part of the Valhalla experience. It really is at the core of what we do. And we're extremely proud of what we've created there. It's a really warm, inviting environment where people can come and enjoy beer, enjoy some camaraderie, enjoy friendship, listen to some great music, and generally have a great time, and perhaps forget about the rest of the world and feel like they could be there for eternity, like the Vikings in Valhalla. We believe we've created a very unique and engaging brand, and that's sort of what drives our brand strategy, which again I'll talk about in a minute. And we've got a young and enthusiastic team, a small team, 4 full-time staff, and some part-time and casual staff, but very enthusiastic, really passionate about the brand, and really passionate about what we're doing as a business. So just a quick touch on the Valhalla history. February 2016 was founded by me and my wife, Ange. And again, it was really a move. I've been in business for myself for 20 years, and I've been a passionate home brewer for a very long time. And it was, for me, just really turning a passion into a vocation, creating a business out of something I loved doing and was very passionate about. In May 2016, we crowdfunded our first batch of Obsidian. So you may have seen videos that we've shared over the last week or so. Crowdfunding really is in our DNA. We raised $5,000 to brew and launch our first batch of beer, the Obsidian Black Ale. In July 2017, we then created Lotus Beer Co., which really was it was a distribution business created in order to support Valhalla and give Valhalla a launching pad, I suppose. At the time, we're only producing 2 or 3 different beers, and they were pretty niche. And so we created a portfolio which basically allowed us to get out there and sell a broader range of beers, make trips up and down the coast and into Melbourne more worthwhile, and create more of a full-time business, I suppose. December 2018, almost 4 years ago, we established Valhalla Tap Room in Union Street in Geelong, which was again really become a core part of the Valhalla experience, and was really important for us to create our own space where we could pour our own beers in the environment we felt that we really wanted people to experience our beers in. In Feb 2020, we then leased some fermenters at Cocky's Brewery in South Geelong, which gave us 2 fermenters there, which gave us a little bit more certainty around production, and also allowed us to increase production to sort of to meet the rise in sales demand. From January 2021, we've really decided to focus on Valhalla's brand and exposure and distribution. And then in May 2021, we were awarded the Champion Gypsy Brewer of the Year, as mentioned, as well as that first beer that we ever made was awarded Best Stout or Porter in Australia too, which was even more exciting. And then July this year, we signed a lease at the Federal Mills in Geelong for a 670 square metre brewery and tap room, which is what this equity crowdfund is all about. Our beers, we have 4 core range beers: a Golden Ale American Style Pale Ale, a Tropical IPA, and a Lime Tart Sour. Many of you probably know these beers. We also have a number of regular seasonal beers, including the Obsidian that I mentioned, and the Aragon West Coast IPA, which was the second beer that we ever launched. And we've got a couple other beers that we kind of sit a little bit outside the Valhalla branding. Union Street Draft, which is a big seller at our tap room. It's a Kolsch style beer. And Torquay Beer Co., which is a brand that we've dabbled with, but has plenty of potential to grow once we're able to actually meet more production demand. I'll mention our tap room. Again, it really is at the heart of what we do in Union Street in Geelong. It's small, it's intimate, 70-person capacity with 10 taps. We play live music on a Friday. We play only vinyl, so classic vinyl. People love coming in and seeing vinyl being played. We would love to, or our intention is to replicate that same vibe, but in a larger environment on, I guess, a more of a industrial sort of scale at the brewery in North Geelong. We're aiming for a 300-person capacity there, which basically triples our ability to sell beer on tap in our own tap rooms. Our long-term future plans include potentially replicating that tap room experience in other locations, such as Melbourne. Growth strategy, we have sort of 3 main areas that we want to focus on with our growth. The brewing facilities really is a core part of that, because without our own brewing facilities, we really can't grow. we can't increase our profit margins, and we can't gain the kind of control that we would love to have over our own brewing processes, our own production numbers, and so on. Getting a bit more serious about our brand exposure and online campaigns, activation of the brand on premise, so in bottle shops and bars and so on, and then targeting publicity through media channels as well. And then distribution, improving our distribution network nationally, including recruiting a national sales manager down the track, working with more recognised brands in our portfolio, and increasing our retail network, particularly through the tap rooms, and also partnerships with other bottle shops and bars. Our distribution, we have distribution obviously locally in Geelong and Melbourne, and also in Adelaide, Sydney and Brisbane. Includes independent bottle shops and bars. We have about 1,000 customers on our database, potential customers on our database, with probably about half of those active at any one time. The Valhalla tap rooms, which will include obviously Union Street and the North Geelong one coming up soon. Online through our own website, and also our Beer Moth, our other website, which is definitely a work in progress. We've been ranged recently in Dan Murphy's locally, so all 6 Dan Murphy's locally and 2 BWS's locally, which we obviously are working towards broadening the scope of those, but it's a good start to be in those stores. And we are working on vintage cellars and first choice. The process is underway, but it takes quite a long time, as it seems. Our Valhalla team, I mentioned, there's 4 of us full time. Myself, Trinity, our marketing director. Dylan, our hospitality manager, who takes care of everything taproom orientated, and the hospitality experience with our customers, and Lockie, our sales guy, super enthusiastic and very personal, and people love buying beer off Lockie. So they're all really awesome, young, enthusiastic, and really behind the Valhalla brand. I won't go too much into financials here, because that'll all be in the offer document when that's released next week. But I just want to touch briefly on our profit and loss. There is an elephant in the room, I suppose, that we need that I want to just sort of mention, and that is that we haven't actually made a profit over the last 4 years that the Lotus Beer Co. proprietary limited company has been operating. We went very, very close to break even last financial year, in 2022 financial year, and it does you can see there the net profit upward trajectory is very steady and steadily rising, so that's a good sign. But what I also wanted to point out is that top yellow line is our overall income. But the blue line is our cost of goods. So while the income's going up, the cost of goods is going down, which means our profit is increasing as we produce and sell more and more of Valhalla beers as opposed to third-party brands. And that will only increase even more once we have our own brewing facilities and we're not paying other brewers to use their facilities. So definitely good signs there. Some investor rewards. We will be providing rewards to our investors in addition to, obviously, to the shares you receive as part owners of the business. And this is a bit of an overview there. The Odin's table is what we're going to call our special investors who get a seat at Odin's table. I guess that would have been the main table at Valhalla, I imagine. So yeah, that's a bit of an overview. We'll have an honour board at the brewery, so everyone who is an investor will get their name up on the board. We'll have a big party basically to launch the brewery, so everyone who is an investor will get invited to that. There's discounts there depending on the amount you invest, and there'll be a special release beer every year as well. For those of you, the first 5 who invest 1,000 or more will get to name a fermenter, which will be named as you choose for life. So that's pretty exciting, and also a collaboration beer for those investing $10,000 or more. There'll be a special beer brewed to launch the brewery, and there'll be free 4, 8 or 16 packs sent out to those of you who get in on the early bird, invest within the first few days of the actual fundraise launch. So why are we raising funds? Well, that's pretty much it there. That's the building that we will be moving into at the Federal Mill site. It's an awesome building. It really sums up what we thought Valhalla was going to be when we first named it Valhalla all those years ago. It has taken us longer than we thought to find the ideal building, but we really do think this is it. It's a heritage listed building, the old Federal Woolen Mills in Geelong, which formed a huge part of Geelong's economy back in the day. Red brick, black metal rafters throughout, and it has that real feel of a big, long sort of beer hall. It's pretty awesome. This is some really initial drawings of what it might look inside in the tap room. They've only just come back in the last couple of days, so a little bit of tweaking to do there. A bit of a rough plan of how everything's going to come together. So essentially, we want the tap room at the front there, and people walk in through the tap room, and then there'll be a glass divider as you see there in that 3D render, dividing the tap room from the brewery. So the brewery will be fully visible on show, and so punters can sit there, have a beer, and look at the shiny, pretty stainless steel. And then I just wanted to sort of finish off on this little note on the Federal Mill site itself. In the next week or so, I believe, or next couple of weeks, the Spirit of Tassie port will be open, and so the Spirit of Tassie will be coming from Geelong, and the port is basically 600 metres from the Federal Mill site. The Federal Mill site has around 50 businesses on site, around 1,000 employees, including 1915 restaurant, which is the one you can see just in the right hand on the picture there, and Anther Distillery. So we've got some really good complementary businesses there. We've got heaps of people on site, and all looking for a beer. So Friday knockoffs are going to be pretty awesome, and yeah, it's a really exciting development for us to be moving in there, and finally building our own brewery. So I reckon that's about it from me as far as presentation goes.
Amazing.
Let's open up to questions, I guess.
Thanks so much, Scott, for a great presentation and to learn a bit more about, not only where the name came from, but also the really, really exciting developments coming up in Corio Bay as well. So if you do have a question for Scott or for myself to ask now, please use the Q&A bubble down the bottom, and we'll get to your questions as soon as we can. So the first question, I'm just answering these in order as they come through. The first question is from Melinda. Thanks for the opportunity to ask questions. Love the Federal Mills site, but just wondering, what is your environmental plan? Are you planning to have solar or anything on the site, and has Odin approved of this very cool building?
I'm sure Odin has approved. I'm sure he would love it. I hope that we're doing the right thing in his name. But no, seriously, the environmental side of it is important to us. It's probably early days for us to really have a plan. We are still in the process of approaching, of going through planning with council, and obviously part of that will be influenced by how much we raise through this capital raise. Solar is definitely something we want to achieve in the not too distant future. So I can't say we have a very solid plan right now, but it's definitely part of what we want to achieve with this brewery.
Awesome, thank you. How long is the lease at Federal Mills, and when is the new site expected to be ready by?
So the lease is 5 + 5 + 5. So that means it's a minimum of 5 years and not necessarily a maximum of 15, but we get to choose up to 15 years. So after 5 years, we get to renew for another 5. and then another 5 after that. The lease starts on the 1st of January. Look, we were hoping if all goes well, we'll be up and running by April. We have a 5-month rent-free period as part of our lease, which is awesome. But we also, the Hamilton Group, who owns the site, who are big developers around Geelong, doing some awesome development work on commercial properties around Geelong, they've offered to extend the rent-free period for as long as it takes to fit out and develop the site, provided we give them the work. So they'll be definitely getting a shot at it, and if their pricing is competitive, then it will be very much well worth their time using them. And then essentially what that means is that we get 5 months free rent from when we open.
Yeah, awesome. Terrific. I've noticed there's a question here from Dean asking about being new to crowdfunding, how it all works, and a little bit more about the profits and the dividend. Dean, I will come back to your questions in a second. I might keep on theme with a bit more about the brewery and sort of going back to the presentation, but we're very excited to answer your questions in a little second. Olivia's asked a question about the timeline of investment activities. So just a little bit more detail on, how you sort of see it rolling out in terms of general expectations of when things will be delivered. I know you've just spoken about the site being ready and your first bit of lease, but what about the other activities that you articulated?
So the brewery's been ordered. So we expect that we're going through a company called Boutique. Neil Cameron is an extremely experienced and respected brewery man around in Australia, ex-CUB, ex-Australian brewery, and they've built a lot of great breweries. So we are using them for their expertise. They use a manufacturer in China. So we expect that equipment to be arriving early in the new year. It is definitely underway. It may even arrive before Christmas. So we paid a deposit on that already. So that's underway. Planning is underway. I have had pre-planning meeting with council. We've spoken to Heritage as well. So that's all underway. So I think our time frame is realistic as far as getting in April. Obviously, we want to have bums on seats and people buying beer over the bar as soon as possible. So that would be probably our priority, to get that side of it running. The brewery should be pretty much about the same time, but as long as we can get people through the door. So really that's the timeline, I think. It's all happening already, and it has been happening for the last 2-3 months. So things are definitely moving along.
Yeah, awesome. Terrific. Thank you. Also, everyone who is tuning in, if you do see a question in the Q&A that you really like, that someone else has written, and you'd like that to get answered more quickly, make sure you like the question, and it will be sorted by upvote, so we can get to your most pressing questions first as well. But as I said to Dean, we are going to get to the investment parcel of like how the whole mechanism works, at the end of sort of the more general brewery questions too.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. So the questions come through from John. Once you're brewing yourselves, what do you forecast the impact to the P&L will be? Now, I know we can't include financial forecasts in, the equity crowdfunding regime, which we can go into a little bit later on. Yeah. But in general, how do you think those margins are going to shift, and how it's going to impact, the performance of the company?
Look, we think it's going to have a huge impact on our profit margins. At the end of the day, we will no longer have to pay someone else to brew our beer for us. We have been controlling a fair part of the process for quite a while. We do arrange all our own ingredients, all our own excise, all of those sorts of things. But to be able to, not have to pay that sort of per litre brewing rate, I think will make a huge difference on our profit and loss. It'll also increase our sales. Now, look, as Claire said, we can't sort of provide forecasts, but look, I would be surprised if we didn't double our Valhalla sales pretty quickly, because we just simply can't keep up at the moment. We're constantly running out of beer. At times we're not promoting Valhalla beers because we just can't provide it. So I mentioned the other brands, particularly Torquay Beer Co. It's something that's just sort of sat on sat on the ledge for quite a while because I just know that if we start promoting it, we're just not going to be able to provide the beer. So our capacity increased significantly. We also have some contract brews lined up. So we have other people that want to brew on our site as well. So we kind of go full circle on that gypsy brewing thing. So there are a lot of really exciting things lined up. And while I can't put a number on it, it's going to have a significant impact.
And for those of you listening in, when you hear us talk about things like we can't include financial statements, I might just give a quick explanation of why that is. So as Birchal, we're a licensed intermediary by ASIC to be able to host and run these offers for companies like Valhalla Brewing. Part of the regulations that we work under is that it is regulation designed for a retail investor audience. So people who are not considered to be sophisticated or wholesale investors as per the wholesale sophisticated net asset test. Basically, what this means for people, it's a couple of things. Number one, this is a great regime where anyone in Australia over the age of 18 can invest in exciting startups and small to medium enterprises, which is great. Usually this method of investing in these private companies was restricted to the wealthy few. But on the flip side of that coin as well, ASIC takes the view that, usually startups say things like, we're going to make $5 million in the next 1 year, 2 years. And although, a sophisticated investor sort of applies a bit of rigor to this and goes, well, that's probably not that likely. ASIC takes the view that for us to share that sort of information with retail investors could be seen as misleading if it doesn't have a reasonable basis, because whatever the company says as a forecast, it is a really educated guess. And ASIC really wants to protect retail investors from these educated guesses by only allowing companies to put in the offer documents through these campaigns of their financial performance up to the date of the offer opening, unless, of course, the company has got reasonable basis to put in further forecasts. And that might be things like forward side contracts, pre-orders, things like this, basically like guarantees that amount they think they will make in the future is going to be true and correct. So hopefully that answers it. We're not just being cagey.
Look,
lost me. Sorry, I say we're not just being cagey as a platform and as the company. That's a regulatory framework that we have to adhere to when we're presenting these fair offers to you.
I should also say that the tap room itself will have an impact as well. And again, I'm not going to, as Claire just said, I'm not going to make exact predictions, but we've sort of budgeted on it's doing at least twice as much as what we currently do at the Union Street tap room. So that's a really big increase on our bottom line as well, because the retail side of it is the highest margin side of it as well. So we have highest profits margin where we're pouring beer directly out of the tap into a glass and into the punter's hand. It's a much higher margin than wholesale sales are. So that's another aspect of it.
Yeah, awesome. And important to add in as well. A great question that's come from Lee. Maybe this will all be in the perspective and better to wait. And if better to wait, all good. Lee, a lot of the questions that you're asking will be in what we call the offer document. That's the equity crowdfunding version of a prospectus. But to rocket through some of your questions really briefly, how much is the raise and for how much equity? That information will be in the offer document. What is the current shareholder base? As well, in the offer document, any existing shareholders and their allocation of the company will be displayed, both on a pre-raise basis and also a post-raise basis. So what will happen after this crowdfund goes ahead, how everyone's shares look. Scott, you might be able to add a bit more colour to this. Does Valhalla Brewing have current shareholders already in the company?
Yes, mostly me and, well, my wife, not officially on the, but my wife and I, and we do have two other shareholders holding about 3.33% each.
Awesome, thank you. And is this company an ESIC? And an ESIC stands for an early stage innovation company, which is, for some investors, there are some good tax implications of that. But Scott, do you know if Valhalla is ESIC?
Don't believe so, no.
Don't believe so, no. And final question from Lee, who designs the artwork on the cans?
I do that. So,
oh, cool.
Yeah, I was a graphic designer for about 15 years before I got into the industry that I was into before beer. So yeah, I've been a graphic designer for a long time, and it's a little bit of fun for me. Yeah, a bit of creative fun. So
Love that. So you mentioned a little bit before about a couple of other breweries in the area. A great question is coming from Jason, and it's similar to another question I saw asked before as well. Has there been any market research in terms of competition from other brew houses around Geelong? And, especially, such a great commercial opportunity coming with the Spirit docking in Geelong now instead of Port Melbourne. So a little bit more information on the competitive landscape around your area would be incredible. And then the part B to that question, I think Jason just wants to know what your opening hours are going to be for the house.
I might do the opening hours first because it'll be quicker and easier. At the moment, we're planning on opening 6 days a week, probably close Monday, very similar to what we do at the tap room in Union Street, except we'd probably open from lunchtime from 12, go through till around 10 in the evening, and then Friday and Saturday nights till 1. Obviously, that's all subject to getting our planning permit, but that's sort of the rough guide to what we're aiming for. As far as the Spirit sailing, I know that 1915 had plans to try and work around their timetable. I haven't looked that far into it yet. So, but we are working. There is a question again from Jason about whether we have a kitchen. We are working with 1915, the restaurant, so we are looking to collaborate quite closely with them. So we'll work with them on opening hours, and we're also going to work with them on food. I don't think we're going to have our own kitchen. But anyway, we'll go back to the competition. Look, I don't really see the other breweries as competition. I mean, Blackman's is probably the one that I would, you would shine a light on as far as their operations. Great brewers, been around for a bit longer than us. They've got their brewery and tap room in Grovedale, which is the other side of town from us. We're in North Geelong. They're over in sort of more west, southwest. And then Bells Beach. I mean, we know those guys really, really well. They're actually brewing beers for us at the moment. Great guys. They've got a little bar in Geelong, and then their Torquay brewery. I think we all complement each other very well. I think the more the merrier, as far as the more breweries in Geelong, the more likely people are going to travel to Geelong to visit them. We've obviously got some great breweries around the Bellarine and Torquay and down Surf Coast as well. So yeah, I think it's a great opportunity, and Geelong's getting a little bit of a reputation, I think, for being a bit of a destination for craft beer. So I think there's plenty of love for beer to go around, and certainly when it comes to tap rooms, obviously wholesale is competitive. It's competitive here. It's competitive in Melbourne. It's competitive all around Australia. So, but competition's good. It's healthy. It makes you always look at what you're doing and work to improve what you're doing all the time. We feel like we've got a brand that sits really nicely in the marketplace. We have a sort of edgy urban style design that we think works for us and sits nicely in a sort of our own little niche in the marketplace. So I hope that answered the question. A bit longer.
Yeah, terrific. I'm a big, you can't have brewery pub crawls if you don't have lots of pubs. So no. I think it's a great thing as well. A quick fun question that has come through. Will you have Pilsner beer as one of your core?
Yes, we'll definitely have a lager. In fact, 1915 wants us to make their house lager too, so that's a nice little aside. That will be a nice little earner for us. But yeah, we'll definitely have a Pilsner on tap. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to make a lager really because as a gypsy brewery, the other breweries don't really like you holding up their tanks for 6 weeks or whatever it takes to lager a beer. So they do take a lot longer to condition, and so I'm very much looking forward to it, to be able to make one. Yep.
I can't wait to try it when it is brewed. Great question from Danielle. If a lot of the money has already been spent, so the lease has already been signed, brewery already ordered, etc., yep, what happens if the capital raise doesn't raise sufficient funds to meet these needs? So I think in this, you can probably give people an indication of maybe, the minimum target that you're looking to raise in this campaign, yep, and what you'd love to raise, in a perfect world.
So so the minimum raise, we're looking at around 300,000. We haven't decided on the exact amount just yet, but that will be determined a little bit by the expressions of interest, the level of interest. But that's around the figure we're looking at, and you know, the maximum we would probably would be up around 850. Obviously, there's a pretty big gap between those two numbers, but 300 gets us to the next stage. We've already put a sizable deposit on the brewery itself, and paid a security deposit on the lease. So those things are secured. If we don't achieve that that minimum target, then the capital raise doesn't go ahead, and we go to Plan B.
And so, what does Plan B involve for Valhalla Brewing? If this
Plan B would involve raising the funds outside of a equity crowdfund. So yeah, we would be raising those funds privately.
Thank you. Two questions from Pepe. When will the crowdfund be open for investment? It's question number one. And question number two is, you said you would break even this year. With the latest growth and investment planned, when do you think you'll start to make profits? Do you think that would be shorter term or longer term? Again, understanding that you can't be, you know, super specific with profitability, but a general idea of what you feel might be the outcome.
Yeah, so I believe, and Claire, you might be able to correct me on this, but the expressions of interest finishes on Monday night, and so I believe that the crowdfund proper then opens up on the Tuesday. Is that right, Claire? And that will just be to those who have expressed interest or registered their EOI for about 3 days, I think. Claire, is that right? And then it'll be open up to the public. So yeah, so that's the time frame. Break even. I very genuinely expect to break even next year, apart perhaps from, you know, outlay on equipment. As far as operating profit goes, I did expect to make a small profit this year. I think we made a loss of about $13,000, so it's very close to break even. So yeah, we're very close, and I think the trajectory is only going upwards. So I would be very, very surprised if we didn't make a profit this year. Of course, taking out, you know, accounting for the capital purchases, which are covered by the equity raise anyway. So.
Awesome, thank you. Is the Valhalla name and logo trademarked?
The logo is, the name isn't at the moment. That's a work in progress. Unfortunately, it's not as simple as I would have liked, because there is an ice cream company in Tasmania called Valhalla. You may have heard of it. They don't operate, as far as I'm aware, outside of Tasmania, and they don't operate in our space as far as beer and liquor goes. But they have those areas all covered, which is a bit of a quirk of the trade marketing system. So they're pretty much thrown a blanket across that whole area, and so we have to work around that. I'm confident that we will, but it's just not. It's just a work in progress. But the this little guy is trademarked, so that's one thing.
Amazing. Now, Dean, you've been incredibly patient with your questions, and I might now hop to the equity crowdfunding mechanism and investments to the asset class and how it works. And then we've got a couple of more questions about the brewery we can get to at the end as well. So for those of you who are new to this on the call, consider this a bit of a crash course in equity crowdfunding. For those of you who have done this before, maybe it's a refresher. So equity crowdfunding, in summary, is basically where members of the public, as we were talking about before, retail investors can buy a stake or equity in a private Australian company or a public unlisted Australian company through this equity crowdfunding regime. So what that means when you invest and buy a stake in a private company is that often your shares are considered to be illiquid. So you can't buy and sell your shares as openly as you would in a public market like the ASX or stock exchange. The rules around buying and selling your shares are usually governed by a company's constitution. So when we say they're considered to be liquid, it's more so the fact that it's just not easy just to sort of divest of that asset and get the money back. And a big part of that is because companies' value and valuations get sort of set every time they either do a capital raise or have a large, exit event. Unlike on the stock exchange, where that company value sort of fluctuates, throughout the day, every day. So when you invest into this company, you will get fully owned ordinary shares in Valhalla Brewing, and you'll have all the rights associated with those shares. Usually you can invest as an individual, you can invest through a company, you can invest through a trust or as a self-managed super fund. Really up to you. The one thing you can't do through Birchal at the moment is invest under a joint name. So if you and your partner want to invest together, you'll need to talk to your accountant about maybe setting up another structure through to invest through. But we've got a couple of how-to guides and help guides on Birchal and how to do that. What happens is that your shares in Valhalla Brewing, it's a relation between you and the Valhalla company, and Birchal, we are the intermediary that helps that transaction take place. So if then Valhalla Brewing then goes after this capital raise to raise funds again in the future, you don't lose your shares, but of course, if more investors buy equity in the company, then the pie is divided further. So your slice of pie may get diluted. But ideally, if they're raising more capital in the future, the company's value will be greater. So it's not, your slice of the pie isn't just getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller in the same size company. Hopefully the pie is getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So ultimately it's, a benefit for you as well. Typically in private companies, there's a couple of ways that you can get your funding out or divest your shares and turn that asset into a liquid asset. A couple of examples is the company pays dividends out of profits, and they remain as a private company and they pay dividends, into the future, and that's one option. Option two is that the company may decide to list on a stock exchange or the ASX and become publicly traded, so people can buy and sell those shares on a daily basis. A third option is that the company may be acquired by a bigger player, where the bigger company sees Valhalla Brewing, goes, this is a great company, we're going to buy out every single shareholder and cash out that way. And another way is maybe Valhalla Brewing, raises more capital in the future, again, from a bigger investor. And again, that bigger investor, they're not necessarily buying out the company and taking all the control, but they might just want to buy out the slightly smaller investors as well. Those are just a couple of ways that companies can hit what's called an exit event. There's a variety of ways out there as well. But it's worthwhile keeping that in mind when you invest into a company like Valhalla Brewing or any company on Birchal, that we really recommend, because these companies are early stage startups. They're often considered high risk. As you can see, Valhalla are building their brewery and they've got amazing beers and an amazing founder backing the company. But this is not the sort of thing to invest into if you want to get your money out in 6 months' time. This is what is considered to be a medium to long-term investment. So make sure you read the risk warning on Birchal, look at the offer document, please consider all information carefully. Because once you invest, if you decide that this investment is no longer for you, it's a little bit tricky to sort of, reverse that decision as well. So hopefully that's your, 3-minute crash course in equity crowdfunding. It is a really exciting way to get in on the cutting room floor of Australia's most exciting startups and SMEs. And it's a really, wonderful way for, everyday Australians to back great founders and great ideas, as they're beginning and as they're growing as well, to sort of thank you for being, supporters of the brand from the inception. So not sure if I missed anything, Scott, or if you thought you want me to add anything else to the explanation of equity crowdfunding and how it works for investors.
No, I don't think so. I agree. This is this is a long-term, medium to long-term investment in our company. It does require a leap of faith, I think. We believe that we've got a great business model, a great brand. We are improving year on year in both sales and profit, in margins, I should say. But it is, we do expect people coming on board going to be here for the medium to long term journey as we take Valhalla into the next step. So
fantastic. I've got 2 questions left from the crowd, and then we might wrap up today's session there.
Yep.
One question that's come through from Melinda. It sounds like the Hamilton Group is on board, but she's just wondering if the Geelong City Council has provided support to your venture.
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, I have had pre-planning meeting with the council. They obviously won't say, yes, you're going to get approval, but they did say in that meeting that they would support it. So they were I think they're very excited. I think everyone's really excited. I think that we complete the picture up there with Anther Brewing, Anther Distilling and 1915. I think Valhalla really just caps it off. Everyone up there is really excited. We went up there for a photo shoot. I showed you the article in it from the Geelong Eddy a couple of weeks ago in that presentation. We went for the photo shoot for that. Everyone's just really excited that we're there. And yeah, the council are definitely keen. Geelong Tourism also looking to make that area a hub, a tourism hub in relation to the Spirit of Tassie. So yeah, it's all really come together, and yeah, for sure, Geelong Council behind it.
Awesome. And final question from the crowd. We've done an amazing job. We've gone through 15 questions in this Q&A. Are there any future plans to expand tap rooms outside of the new Federal Mills Brewing beer hall site and Union Street location?
Look, definitely. It's long-term plans. We've always thought that Valhalla Tap Room would work really, really well in Melbourne. So we'd love to do that down the track sometime. And then perhaps regional centres like Bendigo and Ballarat. It's definitely been something in our thinking for a long time. Obviously now that the tap room and brewery here, that they're our priority, and they're going to be our focus for the next 12 months to 2 years, I think, realistically. And obviously we need to be able to fund these things too. So that the caveat on that is, yes, we would love to. We need to be able to fund it, but we do think it's a great model, and we do think it's very replicable. So yeah, it's definitely part of our long-term thinking.
Terrific. A couple of questions have quickly come in, and I have put a couple of articles in the chat as well for everyone if you want some quick links to save ahead of next week's offer round. The offer document will be available on the morning the offer opens. Once the offer is open, everyone who has expressed interest will get early access to the opportunity on the investment portal page, which will include the company's offer document, company constitution and subscription agreement, and all the information you need to have a look and make a decision on whether this investment is for you. And if you do make an investment through this virtual campaign, throughout the investment, you can invest as many times as you like until you hit the $10,000 cap in this campaign, unless you're a wholesale sophisticated investor, in which case you'll need to provide us with a certificate of your status there. Make sure if you are going to invest a little bit and then invest again, that you do make sure that the entity name is the same. So we bundle that up, in the settlement process, so it's in one share certificate. But this question, I suspect, if it's asking about investing after the equity crowdfunding campaign in the future as well, this will depend a little bit on the company constitution of Valhalla Brewing, and of course, if they raise their target and if the company wants to go out and find more investors. But maybe, Scott, you can add a little more colour to that if you're thinking after this capital raise of going out for further investment in the next 12 to 24 months.
Look, I probably can't really. I mean, we're not opposed to it. I guess I guess it comes down to how much we raise. When we say that the 850 is our limit, that's because essentially that's how much of the business we're prepared at this stage to sell. So based on the valuation that we believe, roughly, we haven't quite finalised that either, but based on that, we think that that's where we're comfortable at selling that portion of the business. It's not to say that down the track we won't. There might be a new project. There might be something else we want to raise funds for. We're not going to say one way or the other whether or not that's going to happen, but we're not opposed to it. It's just during this raise, the 850 is pretty much the cap. If we don't raise that, we'll certainly be looking at our options. But to be honest, I'd need to seek advice on that from our lawyers and accountants and so on. So yeah, it was a pretty vague answer, but that's best I can probably provide right now.
No, that's absolutely fine. And just to clarify for this investor that's come through, just going back to the profitability of the business and whether shareholders receive dividends, we did cover before, usually happy investors tend to get, income back from these investments. Typically, a lot of early stage startups will reinvest the profits back into the growth of the business until a time that they're making so many profits that they decide to pay dividends, if that's indeed what they plan to do. But maybe again, Scott, you can add a little bit of colour into Valhalla's current philosophy on this when you hit profitability.
So yeah, I guess our our philosophy, our overall thought towards dividends is that, yes, we do want to pay dividends. We do want our investors to get some reward for their faith, I guess, and their loyalty over time. We will only do it when we believe that the business can afford it, and we wouldn't see that being more than 3 years. I wouldn't think. I wouldn't see it happening in before 3 years. After that, we'd assess it as we go along, and we would invest a portion of our profits back into the business, and then a portion of that would go to dividends. I wouldn't like to again commit to exactly what those proportions look like, but we definitely do have a philosophy that we want to provide dividends back to our investors.
Terrific. Thank you so much, Scott, for your time today and for an amazing presentation and for some fantastic answers to the questions that have been asked. Thank you, everyone who came along to today's webinar. And again, I do apologise that we ran a couple of minutes late, but I think it was worth the wait. It was an excellent session, and I'm very, very excited for your campaign to open next week as well. If you have any more questions for Scott and the team, he'll be sending around a recording of today's session and his contact details there. So if you'd like to have a chat with him or go into a little bit more depth on some of the topics he covered today, you're more than welcome to do so. If you'd like to reach out to the Birchal team to understand a bit more about who we are, how we work, are we dodgy, all this kind of thing, we're also very happy to chat to you through our support email or our chatbot on our website. But for now, we'll leave you at that. Thank you so much again for joining us. Scott, yourself as well. I'll let you potentially sign off.
Thank you for goodbye. Okay, great. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for your time. And yeah, as Claire said, just reach out anytime. My phone number and email will be available.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Cheers.
Have a great day, everyone. Bye.